I keep mentioning the Washington Post because I find it so incredible when I talk about editorials coming out of a left-leaning newspaper that are berating the president. And this is an issue I want to take up with Douglas Holtz-Eakin, the former Congressional Budget Office Director. Doug, it's always great having you on, my friend. But in this, Washington Post editorial, it made this sort of final damning comment. In hindsight, the president's $1.9 trillion rescue package in March 2021 was too large. He can't correct that now, but he needs to make good choices. In the short term, that means reducing or eliminating some of the tariffs President Donald Trump put in place and speeding up legal immigration to get more workers to the economy. Goes on to mention other ideas, but more or less going back to that rescue package, easy to play money man quarterback, I know, whether you're on the left or right, but saying that really started the inflation ball rolling. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's exactly right, and there are good reasons to think that, because even at the time, I, for example, testified in the Senate on that bill and urged them to not pass it because we knew the economy was growing at about 6.5%. There was no need for additional stimulus. There certainly was no need for $2 trillion of additional stimulus. The economy was far closer to full employment than $2 trillion would merit. And so it was going to generate a problem of one sort or another. Former Secretary of the Treasury Larry Summers was publicly saying this is a mistake, it's going to cause inflation. So they knew and they were warned and they did it. And then they essentially denied its contribution to inflation continuously, and then said the inflation would go away, and it didn't. And it has just escalated since then. So they have a real inflation problem, and this White House has nothing it can really do. Of the post list, certainly the tariffs would provide some one-time relief, and I'm surprised they haven't gone down that route. Adding more workers is a double-edged sword, right? You get more workers, sure, there's more supply, but those workers tend to eat, so they're going to go to the grocery store. They tend to drive cars, so they're going to go to the gas station. They tend to add to the demand in the economy, and that excessive demand generated by the American Rescue Plan is the problem and remains the problem.
You know what's kind of interesting about this, Doug, when you look at what they were sort of juggling then when they first came to the White House, this notion that someone, I don't know if they have people of your stature, economic background, that just knows numbers. Math is a good idea, but that could have said, all right, we're going to spark the economy with this stimulus package, and we might get an upward ticket prices, but nothing like they finally saw. But they were saying better to err on the side of goosing the economy than seeing higher prices because we're doing it. What do you make of that?
Well, again, at the time, there had to be a point at which the number was too big, where the answer to the question, it's better to err on the side of being too big than too small, was no, it's not. I mean, and when you get to $2 trillion, that's a really big number, and you're erring on the side of being way too big. I think that was fair to see at the time. There have been lots of excuses made, quite frankly. There's been this weird thing where people concentrated their purchases on goods because they couldn't have services. That happened in May of 2020. Almost a full year before the bill passed. Anyone who looked at the data could have seen you were going to put incredible pressure on goods supply chains. And they did, and we got goods price inflation, no question about it. They could have said, well, people aren't actually going to spend the money, there won't be much stimulus, but, well, then why are you doing it? And the reason they could spend the money is we were going to be effective against the COVID-19 pandemic, and that meant that the vaccines were working and the testing was working, and they had to be in favor of those things being successful. So they can't have it both ways, Neil. And the real issue for them now, and I want to be as clear as I can about this, is they have put the Federal Reserve in a terrible position because they have no good choices. They can either move slowly, not do much, and Americans have to live with this inflation, an inflation tax that hits everyone, including those under $400,000, or they can move aggressively and in the process slow down the housing market, slow down the labor market, slow down the factories of America. Neither is a great choice, and that's the position the Fed is in as the chief inflation fighter, and the White House is trying to pretend they can have the rapid labor market, they can have the red-hot housing market, and not have the inflation. They can't have them. They're the flip side of the same coin. So getting rid of inflation means having a less robust economy. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, it's not a dual proposition here. Great catching up with you on this, Doug. I appreciate it.